Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 3, Episode 20, Emancipation. Now, with this episode being the one not only leading into the 2-hour season finale, which actually premieres tonight, and also being the tie-in episode for Civil War, I think this was a pretty cool one. It had a fairly minor tie-in. I was kind of worried. I was like, oh, because I saw the movie before I ended up seeing the tie-in, and I was like, crap. They always do some little thing, and last time, what they did in the episode directly led to the movie. But this time, it was more of an overarching sort of thing. It was very similar to the last Captain America movie, actually, where it's like, oh, this happened. And it was actually almost exactly the same, because it was on the news, and it was just like other stuff that was happening, and it directly affects the show. And I thought it was really cool. I liked the way that they did it. They kind of had some interesting stuff in there. You know, they have the Accords and stuff. And this is supposed to be, based on the info, this technically takes place after Civil War, which makes sense because they talk about Steve actually being missing and stuff. So it's like, okay, that makes sense. That's actually kind of cool. So it takes place actually after the film, so it's that sort of tie-in rather than how they normally do it, which is before. But I thought it was really cool. I like the way they did that. They officially announced that Peggy Carter is dead in the series, which is really sad because they actually did that in the film as well. And that's, not a spoiler now because it's just a part of the film. It's not like a big thing or anything, but it's a part of the film as well. So it was kind of sad to see that again, but it was kind of cool that they actually mentioned that on both fronts of it, so everyone knows officially that that's a part of it. So I was glad they did that. It's also very timely. It's an odd way to do it because they've officially cut her off in the present time of the cinematic universe, but more recently it's also been announced that Agent Carter has been canceled, which I believe I mentioned in like 2 reviews ago or something like that. But sadly it's been canceled, and so they it's fairly timely, but the show has been canceled, so we won't be getting a season 3 of that. But hopefully we'll be getting some cool tie-in somehow. But this episode was pretty fun. We have the Watchdogs coming back, which makes perfect sense because they were the first ones to do that. Was like their first little tie-in to the Civil War stuff, where it's like, we need to know who these mutants are. Well, they can't say mutants, but we need to know who these heroes are and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, that's clearly going to lead to the Civil War stuff, and that's how that ties in. And then, of course, those people show up, and it's like, oh, the Accords are nothing. That's a piece of crap. It's not really going to do anything, and it's not going to solve the problem. That's why we're here. So they make their little appearance. They didn't have as big of a role as I was expecting because they're a big organization. I just thought they'd have more of a role in this episode. But it was kind of like, no, these are the people that were the little tie-in early on. So we're bringing them back. And then we'll kidnap these people and, have them turn into, like, creepy, gross-looking Inhumans. All of which you got killed off anyway. So it doesn't matter. But they did a lot that was cool in this episode. They did quite a few things that were very interesting. Some stuff was fairly obvious. The one big reference that was really clear this whole episode was definitely the Ghost Rider stuff. Because, they have, I totally forgot the name, but they have the guy with the fire powers. He has the hoodie and stuff like that. And he's tying the chain around his hand. And honestly, when I first saw that, the first thing I thought of was Daredevil. I'm like, I was like, there's no way in the world this is going to end up being like Charlie Cox. That would be insane. That would be super cool if it was. So I'm like, there's no way that's going to happen. But he was wearing like the whole black outfit and everything. It was broad daylight, so it was very different. But I was like, there's no way it's going to be him. But then they had him like tying the chain around him, which is very funny because that's similar to a scene that happened in Daredevil Season 2. So it reminded me of that. And then he uses his powers to do like, make the fire on the whip. I was like, that's full on Ghost Rider, which I thought of as well during Daredevil. I was like, oh, that's cool, he's using the whip, because Ghost Rider uses a whip. So I was like, oh, it reminds me of Daredevil, but in this, or it reminds me of Ghost Rider. But in this, it was like, no, that is full on Ghost Rider. I mean, all he has to do is turn himself on fire, and that's Ghost Rider pretty much. He'd have to be a skull, but it was very cool. I was like, that's pretty sweet. They did that reference on purpose to make it look like Ghost Rider, and they've been doing that, like little stuff, like anyone uses a chain and stuff, it makes me think of Ghost Rider. So I don't know if that's supposed to be some cinematic universe hints that we're getting a new version of Ghost Rider, and not like the crappy Nicolas Cage one, but like a cool new version of Ghost Rider, because it just seems like they're throwing those little hints in different things. But it was really sweet. I was like, that's really cool. Like, the way he uses powers. It also shows that he has control over his power now, because before he was just blowing stuff up. It was like Gambit, I mentioned. He just touches something and charges it. He supercharges it, and it'll explode. But in this, he had complete control over it, and it was actually just on fire. So it showed that he had a bit more control since the last episode and what he could do with his abilities, which is really cool. And visually, him just like swinging a whip around on fire and like scorching stuff, I thought looked pretty cool. So it was fun that they showed that. Excuse me. And then we have Lincoln through this episode. I was so glad when I found out that was just the plan, because the whole, like the past couple episodes, it was like he's losing his mind, he's trying to get to Daisy and stuff, and he's trying to break out. And I was like, he has to have some sort of plan to save her. That's what I was thinking, but it was still such a huge risk to, leave the team behind, and he's fighting everybody and stuff. And I'm like, man, this is just a bit too risky. It's too dangerous for him to be doing this. It's crazy for him to be doing this, because what could he possibly do to save her? And it's like, I just want to see you, just you and me, and that's all that matters. And then we find out at the end that it was a plan between Lincoln and May, which I thought was very cool. And I was like, I'm glad that that played out like that. And initially I thought like, oh, everyone was a part of the plan. And I was like, no, that doesn't make sense, because Lincoln definitely went like full lightning to stop him. And, there were no cameras anyway. But then we find out that it was, Coulson, May, and Lincoln. So it was really cool. I loved the plan. I thought it was very smart. Talbot was in there, whole episode. He's saying weird stuff. He says tarnations in this one, which is funny. Like, so he just said, they make him say some really silly stuff sometimes, but it was funny when he said that. But it was a good episode. It's a good episode leading into the finale. It was a fairly good tie-in as well. It was very minimal as far as the tie-in. It was just like, this is what happened. Steve Rogers on the run. Peggy Carter dead. And, they brought up the Soviet Accords, which, like I said, that was kind of the big thing for the Watchdogs. But it was pretty cool. It was cool. We got to see the Inhumans, the new Inhumans that were made by the scientists, which came out looking super gross. But that did not matter to Hive. He was like, who cares? Who gives a crap? Like, whatever, man. Let's, Inhumans, sweet, let's do this. Let's make some more. And seemingly they all just had super strength. They didn't have any different powers either. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But he wants more. The plan works out. They actually use Lash, which ended fairly sadly, because I thought for sure something might happen. They'd find a way to make it work for him. But sadly, that wasn't the case. Lash comes in. Very awesome scene though, when he comes in and he's like, he punches Hive, the area, which I didn't realize was a mall until that fight scene, because when he first punched him, I was like, that's an escalator, they're in a mall, or like either, I would assume an abandoned mall, because it had spray paint and stuff inside of it, or graffiti, spray paint. But it was cool. It was a cool little fight scene, and then the other Inhumans like burst out of the container and try to fight him, and he's like, just tosses the first one and stuff, and he's just grabbing them, is like twisting their necks and just squeezing their necks. He was just killing all of them, and he tries to kill Hive, and he does the thing where he like blasts through them, but because he has such rapid healing, it didn't go all the way through, but it wasn't healing up really fast, which I thought was very cool, because he got up and that hole was still there. Like, they showed him stand up and the hole was there, and then they showed Daisy, and then it went back to Ward, and he still had the hole. It wasn't healing up. It may have been a little bit smaller, but it wasn't enough for me to really notice, and it was like you could still see the organs and everything. And I was like, that's really cool. So something could happen. I figured they weren't going to defeat him, but I was like, he's going to escape or something like that, and maybe Lash will be, they'll bring Lash back later on somehow. But, because he went to Daisy, and I was like, holy crap, they're going to have him at least try to kill her, but it's not going to work, and then Lash is going to die. But he actually saves her, and he pulls the infection out of her body, and I was like, he's the cure. Like, that's how they're going to save everyone who's been infected. And I thought he was going to die right there, to be totally honest. And then they get on the ship and everything, and he's like, now you're, or he said, like, now you're free, and then he picks her up and puts her on the ship. And I was like, oh, I guess he's not going to die. And then they had the scene where he's looking, I'm like, he's definitely about to die. And the whip shoots straight through him and kills him. And I was really curious. I was like, could that really kill him? Because we didn't really know what his powers were outside of the explosions and being able to, like, vaporize stuff. It seemed like he didn't take a lot of damage, because we've seen him get shot a ton of different times. And I was like, I just don't know if he'll make it or not. I don't know if this will actually kill him, but unfortunately it does. It is a final move, and it takes him down. So May has to deal with that loss. Officially, she has to deal with that loss. But they still might be able to do something, because he was able to cure her. It could be something in his blood. If they can somehow, make that work as a cure, they might be able to save the other couple of Inhumans that have now been taken over by Hive. So We'll have to wait and see. Or I guess it's just one guy. Yeah, it was always just the two of them. Or, it was kind of that trio, really. So it's really just him and Hive and the scientist now. But we have a 2 hour finale coming up tonight, which I'm very excited for. It should be really fun. Of course, we have Yo-Yo give Mac the necklace in this episode. And they kind of, even in the promo, they kind of showed different people have the necklace at different times because they showed Fitz and he was holding up the necklace. And so it's like, so it moves around. They're going to play around with us for these 2 hours. And it's going to move around and we won't know who's going to die until the very end. But, and even when they were talking about it early on in this episode, when Mac was talking and she actually even came into the episode, I was like, of course she's going to give that to Mac because they have that sort of relationship. And I was like, crap. And then they showed the promo and I was like, oh, so now I don't know who it's going to be because they made it seem like, oh, it's of course going to be Mac. And then even in the promo itself, they kind of switched it around like, oh, why does Fitz have it? And he's holding it up and stuff. And Mac could have easily been in that scene and stuff, and it could have been like on a table or whatever. But I don't know. Like, we just don't know. They're going to be going to different locations. It's 2 hours. It could be moving around all over the place for whatever reason. So we still don't know who's going to die at the end of this season. And I don't want anyone to go. But who knows? Who knows how it's going to play out. But I definitely want to know what you guys thought about this episode. So please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. And of course, we have the 2 hour finale coming up. And we know someone is going to die. So I would love to know your predictions on who they're going to kill off in the series. Will it be Mac? Will it be one of the Inhumans? Will it be, someone else on the team? Who do you think is, I wouldn't say expendable, because if it's going to end up being a main character, which I assume it will be, I don't think it'll be like, here, Talbot, for whatever reason, gets the necklace and he's wearing the shield stuff. So I don't think it's going to be Talbot or anything like that. It's going to be a part of the team. But it's so hard to guess. It's like, everyone has somewhere that they can go, and that's fairly obvious. I don't think it'll be Lincoln, because he's a fairly new character. It won't be Daisy, because she's basically the main character. It's not going to be Coulson, because, well, heck, in general, he's, him being the director, I doubt he'd be the one to take on that final little mission, like, oh, we have to send the ship in space. And we find out why they're in space. It's because they're taking out that warhead. So, I doubt it'll be him. It's hard to say that it would be May, but I don't know. They might do that. I don't know. I mean, she's like the super badass character. Plus, they got rid of Bobby, so we only have like one super badass character when you think about it. But I don't know. It's hard to tell because everyone seems like they have a place to go. I hope it's not Fitz or Simmons, because especially with them finally officially getting together, that would be so devastating if they did that and one of them actually died. So if I had to pick any two not to die, I would have to pick them just for the relationship thing, because it would just be so depressing to see that happen. But I don't know. It's hard to say. It could be one of them. It could be anyone, really, and it's hard to say. But I would love to know your expectations for your predictions on who's going to die and how they're going to stop, the whole nuclear warhead in general, which they're kind of pulling from the comics a little with, because there's an event in the comics where it was like an island with the Inhumans, and I forgot exactly how it played out. Somebody was trying to take somebody else, and like the main Inhuman, whose name I cannot remember, I want to say his name, it's something Bolt. I want to say it's Thunderbolt, but that's probably wrong. But he causes basically the entire island to crash into New York, and it spreads like Terrigen Mist across all of New York City in the comic books. So I feel like they kind of took that idea with the nuclear missile, like, oh, if it caused a wide dispersion, which I doubt they'll do that, where they fail and like all of New York City is now infected with the Terrigen Mist. Even though that would be freaking amazing if they did, I highly doubt they'll go that route. But I feel like that's kind of where they got the idea from, like, oh, we could at least have this as a threat. It won't happen, but this is how we could do that without the whole island and everything in the sky. We could just have, it's a nuclear warhead, it explodes up in the air, and then, well, even if it could crash land anywhere, it's a nuclear missile. It'll have enough of a expanse to spread the Terrigen Mist. But I'm excited to see where they go with this. Like I said, though, definitely want to know your predictions for who's going to die, your predictions for the finale in general, and of course what you guys thought about this episode in general. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.